Good afternoon. So our guest preacher today is Reverend Professor Dr. Bob Doty, but he would never introduce himself by any of those names. He's just Bob to us. And we met Bob on our border crossing to Kentucky. And amongst other things, Bob was Greg Mobley's mentor in college, several years ago, a little while ago, at Campbellsville University. And we might have Greg Mobley if he had a different professor, but we wouldn't have the Greg Mobley that we have and love today. So to that, I would say thank you, and also, we forgive you.
When I was a little boy, my heroes were preachers. So that steered that kind of modeling. I think in order to be a good minister, you must care about people. You may know everything that needs to be known. You may be a master of scripture analysis, but if you don't care, people will know it. And you can't, I don't think you can't fake it with very old people, nor children. They're very old and the very young are honest. And in the middle, we develop a strategy like the play The Misanthrope, in which a man decides to be perfectly honest, and it's a wreck. The fact is, in the middle of life, we make society run by encouraging people with part truths, part not truths. With the children, you better be right straight on.
So I will say a little bit about Bob too. Two things. There was, I was 18, 19, and I was looking at the world, and there was this room, and in it were poets and novelists and thinkers and philosophers. And Bob opened the door and said, "You are invited." He's the one who took me into that beautiful party through the ages of thinking and wondering. And then the second thing is one of my favorite Bob Doty stories, and some of you have heard it. So once he had me in that room, it messed up my Bible Belt Sunday school Southern Baptist thinking. And so it was in November, it was in the gloaming, after the time had changed, and it's not that late, but it's so dark unexpectedly. And I went to his office one afternoon. I said, "Professor Doty, now when I pray, I no longer have a picture of God in my head. Before, every time I prayed, I could imagine God. Now it's just blank." And Bob said, "Congratulations, and I'm sorry."
With respect to Professor Mobley, Greg, or Colonel, and he refuses to be called doctor. It rankles him. He was in high school and was on the editorial staff, and every article he wrote was ironic, sarcastic. He couldn't blend in with the shallowness that was going on. And when he didn't start college with Campbellsville. He went to Georgetown, which is the old traditional, very sound liberal arts college, which was my alma mater. After 1 year, he came back home and told me that he was coming back to study with me, which was very embarrassing at that time. We read some challenging books in the introductory courses he studied with me, and it was obvious that he had a lot to offer. And after college, and I guess after seminary, you may know he went to Nigeria as a journeyman missionary.
I brought to
Him nothing, He gave me everything. He found a
refused to be a narrow expert and set out early on. I hesitate to use a grandiose word like Renaissance man, but it's been the kind of direction of my intellectual life. And I read widely still. The book I brought with me was E.O. Wilson's The Future of Life, a wonderful book. E.O. Wilson started in a Southern Baptist family in Alabama, and he's just abandoned this narrow view to the world and our place in it as guardians of nature. I've kept a prayer journal for almost 42 years, and I'm halfway through volume 72, 5.5 by 8. India consciously to preserve it for almost 42 years. So I never let a day go by when I'm not conscious of the world's needs. Like 2 days ago, I was overwhelmed with the Boston Globe's reporting of world news. It was just, and that's the sort of thing that forms part of that. And praying for friends and people in need and people around the world, especially victims of war and terrorism. So I don't ever go to bed without being aware that I'm not alone in God's spiritual world.